Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and more Birthright as we wind our way towards the end of coverage for the Canasi realms. Today we're taking a look at one of the last political ones, that's the Maze of Maalvar, which we've covered separately, Maalvar specifically as an Anshe, but now the realm kind of gets its actual treatment here, so you can kind of pair that with our previous video on Maalvar as an Anshe. Before we get into everything, guys, if you do want to support the channel, definitely give us a like and a subscribe, but also comment. And if you want to support us even more, check us out on our Patreon, guys. We got all kinds of different tiers there. We can usually get Birthright videos, among other things, about a week or so early, and some cool exclusive stuff as well. That also helps us keep on the hunt for all these old modules and everything and give you guys more and more content. But with that said, let's jump in. It's another one of these shorter sort of one-page entries here. Chaotic neutral and certainly not available for PCs as you would expect as an Anshe realm, and essentially largely unpopulated as we'd also suspect from learning about Maalvar. Naturally, just about everything is controlled here, although the temples are a little bit of a different situation. So let's jump in on the realm description here. Between the highlands of Khura'in and the Sea of Dragons lies the Maze of Maalvar, a lonely land of sheer peaks, unexplored forests, and gorges covered by wild streams. This is the domain of the Minotaur, a cryptic Anshe who retreated here in the centuries following Deismar to hide his curse from his fellow men. Maalvar does not live alone in this land, though. When he came to the maze, he found a few Khura'inian settlers whom he quickly routed, and aboriginal clans of halflings living in the realm's secluded valleys. These people, the Itave, have dwelled here quietly as long as anyone can remember. When Basarji explorers first roamed the maze, they assumed these halflings were native Ceruleans. No one knows why they chose to leave their idyllic shadow world, apparently for good, so long before the rest of their kind. Now the rest of the continent has all but forgotten them. Curiously, Maalvar acts as their guardian, preventing outsiders from interfering with their way of life, so interesting little relationship there. No more than a few hundred people live in any of the Minotaur's provinces, so law holdings prove largely unnecessary. That being said, there are a couple of level 1s. The Itave follow a local druid worshipping spirits of earth, air, and water, with simple ceremonies performed under their sky, which explains their temple situations there. Again, the Itave have settled this realm so sparsely so to make organized trade, or crime really for that matter, impossible. Merchants of neighboring realms have tried to make contact with the Itave or log the outlying woods of the maze, but Maalvar reacts violently to such incursions. Now, the sources, though, in a warrior early in his life, Maalvar began studying magic to find a cure for the manifestations of the cursed Azrai's blood. Although he's long since abandoned hope of reversing his condition, he does remain a competent sorcerer. Again, see our other video on Maalvar. In the distant past, again, he's a level 18 fighter, as far as things are concerned, and chaotic neutral, so that's important to note too, not evil. Earned a reputation as a noted hero who battled evil across Cerulia for years. However, he didn't realize he carried a dark taint. The blood of Azrai's line ran in his veins. As he grew more powerful and famous, he found himself struggling to resist the impulses to violence and the cruelty that tormented him. Eventually, he lost the fight, and his body twisted into a horrid hybrid of man and bull. A Canasi tale claims his transformation occurred after he killed the Sandpiper in Anshe, who used to inhabit the Tarvan Waste. Maalvar fled to the remote mountains and forests of the maze, and there he still hides. And again, some of these earlier sort of not, we'll say like prototype Anshe, but some of the earlier generation ones that have been killed off by heroes, which then causes the heroes to become new Anshe, are interesting in and of their own right. But we don't really get like that deep into their previous life. But it would have been interesting to see like a sort of an expansion covering like the earlier years after Deismar and stuff like that. The Anshe does not rule the Itave. In fact, he tries to avoid contact with them, fearing he might do them harm. Unfortunately, from time to time, he seems unable to control his bestial rage that seethes in his heart, and he rampages through the labyrinthine gorges and woods, destroying everything in his path. Itave elders recognize his inherent honor, but their wisdom holds no cure for the Minotaur's curse, right? So it's a uneasy relationship, but he is actually trying not to actually harm them, so that is important to note. Some of the maze feels desolate with only a few scattered camps, while other provinces have significant forest. The heart of the maze, called the Bade, lies near the center of the domain. In a hidden gorge stands the labyrinth of Maalvar. It's a cyclopean construction of featureless stone walls, more than a mile across. No one knows who built it or why, but it predates the arrival of humans in Cerealia and is clearly not of elven, dwarven, or even goblin origin. The Minotaur makes his home in a small keep in the center of that, in fact. So, kind of got the Greek mythology thing going on there with the labyrinth and the Minotaur, but with its own, unique birthright twist. For centuries now, the Minotaur has been building onto the labyrinth, improving its original design to make the maze next to insoluble. The structure serves two purposes. First, it prevents intruders from troubling him, and second, when the Ante flies into a rage, he loses the lucidity required to find his way out, which keeps him from hurting others, so he's actually kind of doing this to protect people. The rest of the maze houses some of Cerealia's more dangerous wildlife. Griffins, owlbears, sturges, and trolls, among other creatures, can be found throughout the realm, sometimes in great numbers, and that should be sort of a surprise for adventurers, maybe not necessarily expecting that level of threat as far as like natural creatures or even just other monsters go, and then kind of be not just confronted with maybe a few of these, but here's like actual large numbered encounters with such creatures. The Atave carefully avoid such dangerous creatures, and without their skill or guidance, a traveler likely will run afoul of something deadly there. So, interesting bit there as far as anyone who wants to actually adventure there and is already taking on the danger of getting into the maze would certainly be wise to seek the halflings out and get some of their guidance as well. So, interesting realm, lots of possibilities there. Again, the DM can certainly have fun with the maze itself and dealing with Maalvar in some capacity. That being said, again, he's quite formidable in and of his own right, doesn't get as much shine as some of the other more famous or infamous Anshe, but nonetheless, a level 18 fighter, plus all the monstrous abilities and everything, is no slouch. But a very interesting realm with some potential high-level adventuring for characters. If they're looking to have a challenge, you certainly can throw not just a couple trolls at them, but batches of trolls or sturges or other things, right? Griffins, maybe a whole grouping of owlbears, right? Just lots of things that you could throw at them, just sort of nasty monsters in large numbers. So interesting nonetheless. Let us know, guys, what kind of adventures you've had here in your campaigns, if at all, or how you would use sort of like that classical Greek mythology Minotaur / maze situation in your own games, and the other ways that we could employ that. Hit us up in the comments, like and subscribe, and we'll have more Birthright for you soon.